I'm a 21-year-old woman and I've been married to my husband, who's 33, for just over a year. We started dating when I was 18 and still a senior in high school, and he was 30. To outsiders, our relationship might look taboo, but to us it always felt natural. I've always been told I was mature for my age, so it never seemed unusual. My mom, who's 40, actually had a soft spot for him from the beginning. When she first met him, she told me I was lucky to have such an amazing man in my life. The two of them always got along well, and I figured that was mostly because they weren't too far apart in age. But things shifted during my wedding. That's when I started noticing some odd behavior from my mom. On the day I got married, she told me she wished she was the one in the gown, clearly talking about my wedding dress. I asked her what she meant, and she just laughed it off, saying she had too much to drink. She even suggested that she and my husband should share a dance at the reception. I laughed at the time, thinking it was a joke. But looking back now, I realize it wasn't a joke at all. As time went on, her comments got worse. She started asking me personal questions about my sex life, like how my husband was in bed. I told her I wasn't comfortable talking about that, and she tried to play it off by saying my aunt was the one who was curious. Later, she crossed even more boundaries by asking my husband direct sexual questions. She asked about his favorite position, his kinks, even if he'd ever had a threesome. They were gross, invasive questions, and it made me feel sick. Over the last 3 months, my suspicions about her behavior grew stronger. My husband told me my mom had asked him to help renovate her kitchen since he works in construction. He said he'd be going over there after work, Monday through Wednesday. When I offered to tag along, he said there was no need, that it would just be boring for me. When I asked my mom if I should come, she brushed me off and said I was acting like a nagging wife. But then I noticed changes in my marriage. Whenever my husband came home from my mom's, he never seemed interested in being intimate with me anymore. That's when I started to really worry. One day I went to her house, expecting to see progress on the kitchen, but everything looked exactly the same. When I asked about it, both of them claimed they were still in the prep stage. Right then, I knew something was off. My gut wouldn't let it go. One day, I left work early and decided to stop by my mom's to see what was really happening. I didn't want to just barge in, so I walked around quietly, checking the windows. Her house has a lot of them, and you can see into most of the rooms from outside. When I reached the study window, I froze. Inside, I saw my husband and my mother having sex on her desk. I screamed and started crying immediately. My mom looked stunned, while my husband bolted out of the room. I ran back to my car, hyperventilating, and drove straight home. Once there, I just threw some clothes into a bag and decided I had to get out. As I drove off, my phone blew up with calls from my husband, my mom, and even my aunt, which made me think she already knew. I ended up pulling into an empty parking lot and sitting there for over 4 hours, crying and blasting music. At some point, my tears turned into pure anger. I decided I had to go back to the house and confront him. But when I got home, he wasn't there. It didn't look like he'd been there at all. I figured maybe he'd gotten a motel room for the night to give me space, so I tried to get some sleep. The next morning, I thought about calling him, but I wasn't ready. Instead, I called my aunt back. That's when she told me he had stayed over at my mom's to be there for her. I couldn't even speak, my jaw just dropped. She had to keep asking if I was still on the line. I asked her to arrange a meeting between the three of us, and she agreed to pick me up and drive me there. On the way, she admitted my mom had confessed to her about the affair. My aunt told her to stop, but my mom had lied and said it only happened the day I caught them. Then she admitted she'd been seeing him for a while. I told my aunt I was crushed she hadn't told me sooner, and that she'd lost my trust. She said she understood. When we arrived, I walked in and saw my husband with his arm around my mother, her head resting on his shoulder like they were a couple. This was just a day after I caught them. My mom started crying the moment she saw me and clung to my husband. It made my blood boil. They both told me they wanted to be together and hoped I would accept them one day. I couldn't even process it. I started laughing in shock. Even my aunt told my mom she was being ridiculous. That's when they admitted they'd been in love for a year, and had started sleeping together just 4 months after my husband and I got married. The wildest thing my mom said was that she wanted to start a family with him. I sat in silence, numb. She begged me to say something, but I couldn't. I just asked my aunt to take me home. She grabbed her keys and got me out of there immediately. In the car, I broke down sobbing in her arms. She told me everything would be okay and that she'd be there for me no matter what. She offered me a place to stay, but I just wanted to be alone. It's been a week since then, and I've been at home by myself, crying, drinking, and spiraling into really dark thoughts. Some of those thoughts scared me so much that I almost checked myself into the hospital. Honestly, the worst part is a small part of me wishes I had never seen them, so I could have stayed oblivious. I don't have friends or anyone else in my life. My husband was all I had, and now he's gone. My mom and I have always had a rocky relationship. She used to blame me for my dad's suicide. When I was 12, she even faked a note, supposedly from him, saying it was my fault. In some twisted way, I think this whole affair is her way of getting back at me for that. I think my husband saw my mom as forbidden fruit, and that's why he did it. Men crave that, which is why so many of them cheat. And now here I am, completely alone, with no idea where to go from here. We had agreed that I'd be a stay-at-home mom one day, and that was something I truly wanted. I never planned for college or thought about a career because I just wanted to be a wife and mother. Now that future is gone, and I don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't think I'm very smart, and I have no idea what my legal options even are. I'm sorry this story is so long, but I wanted to share as many details as possible. Any advice or thoughts would mean the world to me. And to everyone who's already given me kind words or support, I just want to say thank you. I wasn't able to reply to everyone, but I did read every single comment, and I feel like I need to clear a few things up. First, this post isn't fake. If I were making this up, I think I'd at least be able to write it better than I originally did. I wish with everything in me that this story wasn't real, but unfortunately it is. Things like this do happen, and the only reason I came to Reddit is because I don't have friends or anyone in my real life I can talk to. Which brings me to the second point, why I don't have friends. Back in 6th grade, my dad killed himself, and when that happened, my entire friend group dropped me. They thought I was weird for having a dad who died that way, and it became social suicide to be seen hanging out with me. On top of that, I developed an eating disorder because of the constant body shaming from my mom's boyfriends at the time. That disorder lasted from middle school all the way through early senior year. I ended up in the hospital a lot, missing big chunks of school, and by the time I came back, everyone already had their friend groups. So I just ate alone. Third, I don't fully trust my aunt. She and my mom are extremely close, they literally ran away together as teenagers. My mom was 17 and my aunt was 18 when they left their abusive home. They were raised by very strict Pakistani immigrant parents who cut my mom off the moment she got with my dad, who was white. Since then, my mom and aunt have only ever had each other, and I know they'll always put each other first. My aunt also has a special needs son and lives in a small place, so me staying there would be a huge burden. Fourth, I probably shouldn't have said I was mature for my age. That's just what I've been told all my life, by teachers, relatives, random adults, even when I was as young as 5. At one point, I was actually 2 grades ahead in school. But my mom pulled me back into the grade with kids my own age, and to this day, she still can't explain why. Fifth, about my relationship, I know it wasn't exactly normal. He first approached me at a mall and asked for my number, thinking I was a lot older. It wasn't until halfway through our first date that he realized I was only 18 and still in school. At that point, he wanted to end things, but I told him I really liked him and asked if we could try another date before making any decisions. On that second date, we connected in a way I'd never experienced with anyone before. We agreed to just be friends at first and only move forward if it felt right. Eventually, I was the one who asked to make it official. He was hesitant, he even told me no at one point because he was worried about what people would think. But a week later, he came back and admitted he loved me and couldn't imagine not being with me. The only red flag I saw was that he was divorced and had a son he barely saw, though that was mostly because his ex and child lived in another state. For context, my husband is the son of Albanian immigrants. He always said the only real thing he shared with his ex-wife was their background, otherwise, there wasn't much love between them. Sixth, I don't plan on going to college just to say I did. I've only ever wanted to be a mom, that's it. But for now, I know I'll need to look for a job to support myself. The flower shop job I had isn't going to cut it, especially since I already missed 3 shifts and ignored their calls asking why I wasn't showing up. Honestly, I think I've already lost that job. Now for the update. The night after I made my original post, my husband showed up banging on my door. He was crying, saying he made a mistake. He told me my mom had been blackmailing him into being with her, that it was only supposed to be a one-time hookup, and that he regretted it immediately. According to him, once I found out, he panicked, didn't want to lose both of us, and agreed to stay with my mom out of fear. He came inside and showed me the texts between them. A lot of it was my mom begging him to come over, and when he refused, she threatened to tell me everything. He swore he wanted us back together and promised to do anything to fix it. I told him I needed space and asked him to leave. That's when things turned scary. He picked up the TV, smashed it, and then started punching himself. At that point, I got terrified. I didn't want him hurting himself, so I called one of his friends, and thankfully, the guy came over and took him away. But the next morning, I woke up to find my husband in our kitchen cooking my favorite breakfast. He said he wanted to surprise me with something I loved. I told him I appreciated it, but reminded him this wasn't something that could be fixed overnight. He started crying again, saying he couldn't live if he wasn't with me. I wasn't sure if he was manipulating me or not, but when he grabbed a frying pan and hurled it at the wall, I knew I had to push him out and lock the door. Later that same day, my mom showed up outside my house, screaming that I was keeping him from her. I threatened to call the cops if she didn't leave, and she finally drove off. But when I came outside later, I found that she had keyed my car, trying to scratch out a nasty slur against women. I called the police, but they told me without video footage there was nothing they could do. Just 2 hours later, she came back again, demanding I let her in. When I refused, she tried to pick the lock to my front door. I called the cops again, and as soon as she realized I was on the phone, she drove off. At that point, I didn't feel safe in my own home anymore. I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I grabbed some clothes and essentials, loaded up my car, and have been living out of it since. It's only been a day or so, and while it's been manageable so far, I know I can't do this forever. My husband messaged me later, saying he's been waiting at the house for me and worrying because I haven't returned. I told him I needed space and that I was staying in my car until I figure things out. He's been sending me voice messages, crying and saying I'm torturing myself by staying away. He keeps begging me to come back and promising that he'll take care of me this time. I haven't responded directly, but every few hours I send him a short text just to let him know I'm safe, so he doesn't panic completely. As for my aunt, I haven't heard much from her since I broke down crying in her car. But I know she has a lot going on, so I don't really blame her. So yeah, that's where things stand. I'm basically homeless, living out of my car, and I have no idea what my next step is. I do have a GP appointment tomorrow to get tested for STDs, so I'm praying that goes smoothly. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who gave me legal advice. I'm hoping to follow up on that soon. I don't know if you guys want me to keep updating, because this is starting to feel like I'm writing a diary at this point. But something tells me this isn't the end of it. I'm relieved to finally say I'm not living in my car anymore. I'm staying at a women's shelter. About an hour after I posted my last update, I noticed a man following my car. He looked nervous, almost like he was debating what he was about to do. This went on for nearly 40 minutes. I even tested him by driving down dead-end streets, and sure enough, he followed me in and out. That's when I took everyone's advice and went straight to a shelter. When I arrived, I was questioned by staff, and I explained that I didn't feel safe going home. I told them how my husband hit me in the head when I was trying to kick him out, and how both he and my mom have been harassing me non-stop. They didn't press too much after that, just focused on helping me feel safe. Honestly, they've been amazing. The women there were warm and welcoming, and so many of them introduced themselves right away. I've never been in such a supportive environment in my entire life. And this might sound strange since it's technically a shelter, but part of me doesn't want to leave. I've already made a lot of friends in the few days I've been here, and for the first time in so long, I feel genuinely happy. There's one girl in particular who's the same age as me. She's here because her stepdad is abusive, and the bruises she has are heartbreaking. Listening to her explain how she got each one actually made me cry. But we connected, and we've even started talking about the possibility of finding a place to live together. That thought alone makes me excited for the future. Beyond her, I've met so many incredible women from all kinds of backgrounds, and it's opened my eyes in ways I can't even describe. As for my husband, he recently sent me a text that sealed it for me. He wrote that if I didn't take him back, I'd have another suicide on my hands. He knows exactly how painful it was for me when my mom faked that suicide note from my dad, blaming me when I was just a kid. For him to throw that in my face was unforgivable. I told him I was done with him completely. His response was to call me a worthless woman, to say my dad would be rolling in his grave over me, and then to admit that he's been sleeping with other women, including my mother. He claimed they could give him more than I ever could. I simply told him to go ruin someone else's life instead of mine. I won't pretend that didn't crush me. I really did believe what we had was special. I cried so much after that, but thankfully, the women at the shelter comforted me. Honestly, if they hadn't been there, I don't know what I might have done. I'm so grateful for them and for everyone online who encouraged me to seek out a shelter. My mom, meanwhile, posted a bikini picture on her story with the caption "Love Hurts." I just responded with laughing emojis because it's obvious she's fishing for attention, both from men and for sympathy. She's always twisted situations to make herself the victim, just like she did with my dad's death. I'm exhausted from even trying with her. My whole life, she's played the victim, and everyone around her enables it. My aunt constantly tells me not to be so hard on her because she's been through so much. But what about me? What about everything she's put me through? Sure, her life hasn't been easy, but why does that excuse making mine a living hell? After I sent her the laughing emojis, she messaged me back saying she had every right to mourn her relationship with my husband. She told me I couldn't even make the sacrifice of letting her be happy, claiming it was her first real connection since my dad. I laughed again and sent another emoji. She then posted our exchange on her story, along with some cryptic quote about kids hurting their parents. At that point, I just blocked her. My aunt hasn't reached out either. I tried texting her, letting her know I was in a shelter in case she was worried. She replied once saying she was at brunch and couldn't talk, and that was it. Considering she knows everything I've been going through, you'd think she'd drop brunch to check on me. But no radio silence after that. I'll admit, I've been tempted to go to my cousin's wedding, since both my mom and my husband will be there, and expose everything to my conservative family. But I know that would just ruin someone else's big day. That would be me turning into my mom, and I refuse to stoop that low. Instead, I reached out to my grandmother on my dad's side, who lives in Tennessee. I haven't seen her since I was 15, we only exchange happy birthday messages every year. I told her my situation and asked if I could stay. She said I could, but only for a week, since she still has 3 grown sons living at home. She said it was already too crowded as it is. I appreciated the offer, but it's clear I need to figure out my own path. So for now, I'm safe in the shelter. I'm planning on finding a place with the friend I met here, and I'll be sorting out legal stuff soon. I also had to reschedule my doctor's appointment for STD testing since so much has been going on, but it's set for next week. Thank you all so much for reading my story and giving me support. If something major happens, I'll update again. But for now, I'm just taking it one step at a time.